The moment you make somebody smile, we feel that we've already delivered on our promise. That's all we had to do. We only produce very limited numbers of cars, so we don't need to satisfy the world market. We're not out there to mass-produce cars. What we're trying to do is just satisfy a niche, people who appreciate the finer things in life, people that want something that's very different. And every Bufori, just so you know, carries a Malaysian flag physically on the body of the car. So we're very proud of that. And the most important thing to be in a situation that I'm in right now is to love what you're doing. And if you can't love it, money alone can't make cars like these. Money alone cannot operate a business like this. You've got to love what you do.
And today we've got another guest with us for Live Confessions, and we're very excited to speak to the founder of Bufori, Gerry Khouri, for joining us. Gerry, thank you for being here today.
Pleasure, Terry. Thank you for having me.
I'm so disappointed that our team did not organize for us to actually be in a Bufori while we have this interview.
We could always arrange that another day.
You heard that? That's on camera now, yeah? Let's start with, what inspired you to found Bufori, blending, your Australian roots with Malaysian craftsmanship to revive the elegance of 1930s American coupes?
It all started way back when I was a kid. It all started with, I love classic cars. I came from a family that loved cars. And I was fixing cars up in my backyard from a very young age. And one day I decided I just wanted to build my own car. And basically it all started just from the passion and the pride that I had for the work that I was doing, fixing cars. And I thought, I can do something a bit different to what everyone else does.
Right.
And instead of fixing a car, I thought I'm going to make one. But nobody really understood. I came from a construction industry. We're builders and carpenters and property developers. And what do I know about cars? But, my heart was really into the machine, the engineering of it, the design and function and form. It was all very important to me. And that's really what started this whole journey for me.
And you say that your family was a family of lovers of cars.
Correct, yeah.
Right? So does that mean that your parents, grandparents, or
No, I didn't go that far.
No, not that far. Okay.
Back. My father never drove a car in his life. My mother never drove a car.
Wait,
the immigrants
your father never drove a car?
No, never. No, they came to Australia just after the Second World War and stayed there for the rest of their lives. And my brothers basically brought me up. I've got a big family. I've got 5 sisters and 2 brothers, and I was the baby in the family. And my brothers were the car guys. They loved, they were very passionate about buying nice classic cars, and they had some fun with them. And I used to tinker with them and damage them. And when I damage them and make mistakes, you got to fix them without them knowing about it. And it got me into the rhythm, so I started to realize how things work and pull them apart and put them back together again until you became good at it.
I'm still blown away by how far you've come, considering that your father never drove a car. Did your father see the business grow?
So when I started, actually, my 2 brothers were the first to think that I was crazy.
Yeah.
You want to give up this crazy building, this massive building career for a crazy car you got to build in your backyard.
Yeah.
And it was my dad that pulled $500 out of his pocket and said, you go out and you prove to your brothers and you prove to everybody that you can do this. And that's the fact of the matter. That is exactly what happened. It wasn't about the $500. $500 doesn't do much, especially in those days. But it was that moral support that I needed from him.
The belief,
Yeah, the belief. And I used that $500 and I just made sure that I'm not going to fail.
Yeah.
And I didn't fail. And that was in 1986. And here we are 40 years later and I'm still doing it. So
40 years later, when you say it out loud like that, 40 years later, how does it feel?
Crazy. And would I've ever guessed that I'd be doing it 40 years later? I would never have guessed that. No, not in a million years.
Right.
And the intention was never to go into business. The intention was always to just produce one car. That's all it was. But then when that first car was finished, my 2 brothers wanted a car each.
Right.
Each time I'd build it, somebody would buy it.
Right.
And then it took my brothers something like 16 years or something like that before they got their cars.
Right.
And their cars actually came from Malaysia.
Oh.
So, all that time I was in Australia before coming here, my brothers kept on wanting their cars and kept waiting. And they could never get a car that was made in Australia from me. So only after we built cars in Malaysia, I was able to send some back to Australia for a motor show. And they
Even your
kept,
own brothers had to wait.
correct, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the unfortunate part of this story. But
I have to ask, how long did it take to build that first car?
literally just over 12 months.
That's
It
it.
was very fast. It was a very basic car, very simple car, but it made an impact. It had the styling, it had the quality, it had the attention to detail,
Yeah.
it had the flowing lines of the 1930s. Everything about that car was just remarkable. It wasn't about how fast it could go. It was about the statement that he made just by looking at it. Nobody could walk past that car without being gobsmacked.
So true.
That very first car, it's here in Malaysia now. In fact, that very first car that I made, I hardly ever drove.
Right.
People used to pay a fortune just to drive it. Back
Not
in
even
those
own
days.
it, just to drive
Just
it.
to drive it. And they'd use it for wedding parties, they'd use it for engagements, they use it for divorces, they use it for any occasion.
For divorces?
Absolutely, yeah, of course, yeah. Celebration. And I hardly ever drove that car. It was driven by every man and his dog, except me.
The man who actually made the car, right?
Yeah.
You've come a long way since the beginnings. It's been, like you said, 40 years. What core design principles ensure that a Bufori feels as elegant today as it will like a century from now? Because those first cars that you built even now are still being appreciated.
Yeah,
So what
of course,
keeps it?
yeah. Everything about a Bufori is very different to every other car in the world. And we don't build a car around a price. And a Bufori is not about buying parts off the shelf and putting them together and expecting this car to come out looking like what it does today. So a Bufori is designed to last forever, literally, for generations.
Yeah.
So a Bufori car is not designed like a normal car where you replace parts when they fail. You service every single individual component that's on that car.
Right.
So every single car is built for a purpose. It's built to tickle the fancy of every single individual customer that we build a car for. In case you don't know, Bufori has never built cars and sold them. That's not how our modus operandi is, not to make cars and sell them.
Right.
We make cars to order.
Yeah.
And every single car is the finest tailor-made suit you can buy with money.
Right. Nothing starts without a person first coming forward and saying exactly
What they want. And that's exactly what they get, exactly what they want.
Right.
If they want something, they'll get it.
Is there a design element that they might ask that would take it too far away from the vision of Bufori for you to say then this wouldn't coincide with the ideal of the company?
Not really. When somebody wants a car like a Bufori, usually they respect our opinion and we'll work with them to conceal or to integrate all the crazy things that they might have in their minds without distracting the real intention of the design.
Tell us about some of the crazy things that you're talking about.
Gosh, it could be a simple thing like a lady's makeup box.
Okay.
Where you press a button, the compartment comes out, your makeup is inside, and a little mirror pops up.
Right. And the makeup artist is there. And...
Yeah, well, kind of. We've got a customer who wanted a steamer because he didn't want to crease his collar when he gets out of the car.
No way.
And we do things like...
He's got a steamer in his car.
in the car, yeah.
That is the best.
We've got better ones coming up. And we do things like Chinese tea sets.
No.
We've been doing them for a very long time. You literally press a button, faster than you can count to 2, boiling water comes out.
My first car overheated, so I thought that was a bad thing. This was a feature for this car.
Well, we can use that boiling water. No, but this is drinking water, and then when you drink Chinese tea, for example, you need to wash the tea.
Right.
So we've got everything, including the kitchen sink. So you can wash your tea, and you can pour the water down the drain, through the sink, and then top it up again, and then that's the tea you're going to drink.
I am amazed by the amount of features and what you can put into a Bufori, but you drive a Bufori yourself, more than one. Yeah. In fact, what's the special feature that you have in your own car?
Mine is a fairly low-spec car. These are very rare commodities to produce. When you remember it takes 9,000 hours to make an entry-level car, we can't afford to build a luxury car or a high-spec car for me because I'm not important enough.
You're not important enough.
The customer is prime, okay? So customer is the most important. And we've got a long waiting list, and the idea is to produce cars for customers, not for ourselves.
Right.
So even though I drive a nice car and I've got a fleet of Buforis, but my daily car is a Geneva, which is a very well-appointed car. It's not the most high-spec car of all, but it's still very well-appointed. It's the most beautiful car to drive. From a technical point of view, that car there, to me, is the greatest car you will ever drive, from a technical point of view. So if you're a driver and you want to drive a car yourself at high speed and throw it into corners and do the things that you're not supposed to do on public roads, then no car will give you more exhilaration and more joy, I promise you, than this luxury limousine that we produce.
Right.
It's not a biased opinion.
Right.
We put these cars on racetracks. These have been, they spend a lot of time at Sepang with different drivers every weekend, and it's used as a medical car at Sepang racetrack.
Right.
And the drivers who drive it can't wait to get back into it. When you don't give them the car for the day, please have it. We want to drive this, we don't want to drive anything else.
Right. And that's why it's as popular as it is and why you're doing as well as you are.
And if you look at the people who buy these cars, they're not the car collectors that everyone knows about. These are the quiet car collectors. These are the guys that really, really know the difference between what is good and what is not so good.
Right.
We're not selling cars to the guys who promote themselves as car collectors. Okay, we're selling cars to the people who don't need to promote themselves.
Right.
And not many people know about them, but those that are in the know exactly who they are.
The true connoisseurs of
the
cars.
True connoisseurs.
The car connoisseurs.
Yeah.
You must get so much feedback about the cars because of how much people appreciate it from the customers who've actually bought your cars.
So
what's some of the things that they've
Just to
said?
give you an example, we've got the very first Geneva we made was for an elderly chap. The family bought the car for him for his 80th birthday. The car didn't exist. We had to invent this car literally in something like 90 days,
Right.
which is technically impossible. But we made a promise that we'll deliver something that we can deliver on his birthday, take some photos, and then we'll take the car back and we'll do what we need to do, and then we'll return the car to you later.
Oh, okay.
But that first car that we made stayed with him until today. We made that car working 24-hour days. The factory doors never closed. Most of the workers slept in the factory.
Right.
We had people from the neighborhood, like restaurants, and people just generally come over just to sit there at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. They pull up a plastic chair and they sit there and just watch everybody building this car from nothing. And
it happened.
It happened, yeah. Delivered the car. We drove the car to him. And if you listen to the testimony of this particular customer, he's passed on now, unfortunately. But I remember him saying, and he's got the best cars you can drive with money, the most expensive, luxurious cars. And he always said to me, this is my favorite car. And when he goes to Port Klang, this is where his hometown was, and this is his favorite car to drive in.
Wow.
It carried a lot of sentimental value because it was chosen by the family. And the family spec'd the car for him, and everything about it was personalized. It had his name all over it.
Right. It's joy. It brings joy to people.
It puts a smile on your face.
Yeah.
And the moment you make somebody smile, we feel that we've already delivered on our promise. That's all we had to do.
Right.
Just build a car that can make people happy when they. You don't have to drive it. Just the moment you see it, it makes you smile, and I think we've already delivered.
Yeah. It's amazing. And we know that the Buforis has a 1930s aesthetic and design to it. Now, some people might feel that sticking to that nostalgia of the 1930s may feel like it's perpetuating a design that's stuck in time instead of pushing automotive design forward.
Right.
What do you think? What do you say to people who have this opinion?
A Bufori is classic in design, but it's contemporary in function. So it's a real mix of contemporary classic.
Right.
And the reason we say that is not everybody out there likes a modern design car. And Bufori is not for everybody. We're not suggesting that everybody out there wants one. No, that's not the case. Okay, so we're only we're very niche.
Yeah.
So we only produce very limited numbers of cars.
Yeah.
So we don't need to satisfy the world market. We're not out there to mass-produce cars. What we're trying to do is just satisfy a niche. People who appreciate the finer things in life, people that want something that's very different. Nobody can ever deny the fact the most beautiful cars in the world are from the 1930s.
Yeah.
And that's all we're trying to do is to complement the 1930s.
Yeah.
What a lot of people don't realize is Bufori's got a lot of firsts in the automotive industry. So we are the first car in the world to be made out of the most advanced materials on the planet, known as carbon fiber and Kevlar, which we started.
It's like bulletproof material.
Well, Kevlar is bullet resistant, and we do make bullet resistant cars. We can make bullet resistant cars to any level of threat that you want, even armor piercing, without using steel. So traditional materials are steel. So we're innovative. So we've been building cars using the most innovative, most state-of-the-art materials known as carbon fiber and Kevlar.
Right.
Only today you're starting to hear about Airbus and Boeing and the hypercar industries and everyone else starting to use these materials. They don't use it in the entire vehicle, but they do use it in some parts of the car.
Right. So anyone who would have this opinion about the aesthetics being stuck in time, it's not the car for
It's
you.
not the case. It's not the case, actually.
Not the car for you.
And unlike many other car companies, not many, but there are other car companies who produce contemporary classics as well. When you look at those cars, you see the technology. You see the mismatch between the modern and the old. When you look at a Bufori, you don't see the modern and the old so much. What you see is it all fits in. It's all in its right place.
Speaking of the cars, each Bufori Geneva requires like 9,000 man hours to build, and that's just entry level.
It's entry level.
Right? And production is capped at like under 50 units per year. How do you manage the tension between maintaining the exclusivity of these amazing cars and meeting potential customer demand? Because I'm assuming that there's more demand than there is supply. Yeah.
Well, let me put you in a little bit of perspective, bit of a deviation from your question. Our installed capacity in our factory here in Malaysia is, this is the only factory we have worldwide.
Right.
And the installed capacity in this factory is 25 cars a month. That's 300 cars a year.
Right.
The unfortunate part for Bufori, though, is we're not able to produce the numbers because we just don't have enough talent available to produce enough cars. So it's been a challenge for us. The reason we've capped it at 50 cars, which is also very, very difficult to achieve, is because the workforce that we've got, we just don't have enough quality people. It's very difficult to find in this part of the world. And we pay well.
The skills
that are available. Now, but how do we balance this? Economies. So we're a company that is primarily focused on quality and not quantity. It's not how fast you can make a car. It's how well you can make the car. That's really, really the most important thing for us. Now, we're far from perfect. Although we're determined and we try and we strive and we work very hard to produce the best handmade car in the world, we fail. We're not the best. We're not the best handmade product in the world by any means, but we're probably the best handmade car that you can possibly make.
Right.
I'm not sure if you know how much of a car is handmade. In Bufori, we're not like other big car companies who say their cars are handmade, who go and buy parts and put them together and they come up with a car that's got a nice name on it, and they do a few things by hand. That's not what a Bufori is. Bufori is a car that is literally handmade. We make a chassis, we make the body, we make the suspension, we make the interior, we make the seats, we sew the leather by hand, we do the woodwork on the dashboards.
And all these are artisans that work specifically for?
Yes, and we make the computers and we do the software development, we do the programming, we make the Starry Night, we make the components, we make a door hinge, we make the window mechanism, we make the air conditioner, we make just about everything on a car.
Right.
And it's all made under one roof.
Right.
Okay, and nothing in a Bufori is done outside of our factory.
Right.
Okay, we don't subcontract out anything. Everything is done literally under one roof, and it's all with our own talent.
Right.
So, and if it was easy, then there'd be a million companies like us trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
There's not. Yeah, we're one of probably 4 or 5 companies in the world that have been producing cars by hand for this long. I think we're the second longest surviving company. There is one British company who's been around for about 100 years, and they're still going. We've been around for 40 years.
Right.
And the other 2 or 3 have only been around for 10 or 15 years.
Right.
So we've survived. We've survived the test of time.
And hearing you talk about the amount of work that goes into creating a car with the artisans that are under one roof, right? So does this mean that with the fact that you can't find as many artisans and specialists as you need, is there an ongoing effort to actually create these artisans or nurture these skills?
Yeah, there is, of course. There's a lot of things that we do. First of all, when we recruit people, we recruit them on face value. Their CVs these days mean nothing. Everyone comes up with a nice piece of paper that tells you how great they are. But actually, at the end of the day, they really mean nothing. What it really means, everything to us is their attitude. And we'll bring them in. We'll give anybody who wants a job, we'll give them a job. If you're prepared to work hard and work honestly, then there's a job in Bufori for you. And then we'll rotate you. We'll put you in one place. You could come in and tell me you're the greatest painter in the world, and I'll put you in the paint department. And then I'll move you from there, and I'll put you in the trim department, and then I'll put you in the metal fabrication and composites and mechanical. And then we sit down together and we're going to work out really where you're most suited.
Right.
And 99% of the time, people who think they're good painters or good mechanics never end up in that area.
What?
They actually have a hidden skill that they never even knew existed in them.
Right.
And that's the greatest thing that we do. Now, what we're trying to do to improve our skill sets and to improve, recruiting more people is we've been trying to create an academy, a Bufori Academy.
Right.
Without going into the details, it's very, very different to everything else out there, but it's an academy that teaches true craftsmanship. We're not teaching you a crash course on how to become a mechanic in 12 months or in 3 months. What we're teaching you, it's a 5-year program. These days, a doctor studies for 5 years to become a qualified doctor. And every year he's got to go back for a refresher course.
Right.
And the human body hasn't changed in the last 100 years, or thousands of years. But a motor car changes every day. Today's car, tomorrow's cars are very different in technology.
Yeah.
And a mechanic who learns for 3 months under a banana tree has got a license or a certificate that says he's allowed to work as a mechanic. And he suddenly knows everything about the cars of the past and the cars of the future. He doesn't have to do a refresher course. And cars are lethal weapons in the wrong people's hands today.
Right.
Cars have become so electrified. Steering is electric. Brakes are electric. If they don't know what they're doing, you've got a car that's lethal.
Yeah.
So, and what do they do about teaching these people about how to ensure safety and ensure you're compliant to the standards and the original intention of the design of the car? Nothing is done. So we're trying to create this academy that allows us to teach people over a 5-year period with refresher courses every year, so that they become qualified tradesmen, not workers. And that's a big word. And you can't expect a mechanic to also do your upholstery and to also fix a window mechanism and to also change your windscreen and to also fix the bodywork and fix the paintwork and fix a dent. A mechanic should be just a mechanic. A painter should be a painter. A panel beater should be a panel beater.
Yeah.
Another thing we're doing is we've created this, it's a very interesting program for schools.
Oh, I read about this, yeah.
So we make these cars, it's called Bufori EV, EVIE, Electric Vehicles in Education. And the idea of these cars, they're basically electric cars that school kids will assemble in a classroom in 31-hour lessons. And the intention here is to teach children the fundamentals of engineering.
Right.
So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to teach young people how to think logically, how to use common sense, question everything. And, and basically what this is going to do is it's going to point them in the direction of becoming engineers in the future for companies like us, because there's always going to be a demand for hand craftsmanship.
And not only is it giving them those skills, but it's also piquing their interest.
Exactly.
It gives them an opportunity to be hands-on with something.
Correct.
And another thing they learn from this would be something very much lacking today, which is delayed gratification.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they have to build this entire car over the course of perhaps a year. And at the end of
the
this
day,
is that race that happens.
Because they can actually physically jump into and they can drive it. They can turn the steering wheel, it's going to rotate. They can put their foot on the brake, it's going to stop. They accelerate, it's going to go forward. It's got all the right things going for it. And this is exactly what you want, okay? So it's lacking these days. So, it goes even beyond that. And what we're also doing is to entice these students or these school kids not to give up after the first 12 months or the first program. When they move up a class, they go from year 7 to year 8 or year 9 or year 10. Every year, the intention is for the cars to evolve.
Right.
So, by the time they finish school, they become, basically they become engineers already, because they've been so exposed to the technical aspect of a motor car and how to build it, how things work.
Right, and more complicated cars along the way.
That's right. The car evolves and becomes more complicated. It teaches them how brakes work.
Right.
It teaches them these things and it makes them question, and then they'll start to understand. And by the time they go to university, you've got a really good foundation to start with.
Right.
And this is what excites us. This is what we need. This is what we want. And this is the direction I think that we all should be working towards.
You're almost literally making your own future Bufori engineers.
Next generation. We're creating the next generation.
Right.
And what better way to do it than, by the time these kids get to year 11, Bufori becomes a household name.
Yeah.
We believe there's a demand for over 2,000 cars a year. We've already got schools from as far as Switzerland to Vietnam to Australia and Singapore and the whole world, Greece even, Portugal. We've got them all over the world, literally.
Right. That's a little bit of a peek into the future of Bufori already. Like
that's one.
Being able to produce more cars. You need more craftsmen as well, and you've started academy for that.
Yeah.
What else can we see for the future or in the future of Bufori in the next decade, let's say?
We've got a new model that we're about to launch. It's a very different car for Bufori. It's no longer classic. It's a contemporary design.
Right.
We intend to launch it in August, before the end of August. And it's launched. It's strategic. It's about Merdeka. We believe we're the pride of the nation. And every Bufori, just so you know, carries a Malaysian flag physically on the body of the car.
Right.
So we're very proud of that. And we thought there's no better time to launch this new sports car other than the Merdeka Day or the Merdeka weekend, something like that, or the week before or thereabouts.
Would this be the first contemporary design?
Yes, it will. We've built pre-production cars over the last 10 or 15 years. But this is the first production car that will be built as a modern contemporary design.
Right.
It's a high-performance supercar. It's very, very fast. It's very rapid. It's got road holding like nobody's business. It's gorgeous to look at.
And how many will there be for?
So we're targeting 60 cars a year.
60.
And orders have already come in. We haven't even built them yet. We've only built the first pre-production car.
Right.
Production is starting as we speak, but the first pre-production car is about to come out, and we're doing testing on that car right now.
Yeah.
Orders have come in, and it's exciting stuff, really exciting.
Wow.
Very exciting for the company.
And that's going to be around Merdeka, right? You said?
Before Merdeka Day, yeah.
Right.
And another interesting thing we're working on is we've got our own EV technology, which is very, very different to what everyone else is doing.
Right.
Not to suggest that everyone else is wrong and we're right. It's just something different.
Right.
It's a competitive world out there, and we've got technology, and we just want to showcase an alternative fuel that can be used for powering a motor vehicle.
Right. So we're going to look forward to finding out what this is.
Keep an eye out for us, and
in the next interview that we do in a Bufori.
Yeah, in a Bufori. Well, yeah, maybe that one. Not sure yet.
Now, reflecting on Bufori's journey, what's been the single most significant risk you think that you've taken so far that got you to where you are today?
The move from Australia to Malaysia, that was a risk.
Yeah,
that was a big risk. Especially everything was unknown. We're a small boutique manufacturer in Australia at the time, only been around for 5 years or so.
Yeah.
And then to pick up and come to Malaysia with an unknown partner. Wow, bold move, and we're sheltered in Australia, so we're not an international company by any means. And my two brothers and I basically just made this decision over a cup of coffee sort of thing.
Whoa.
Said, we've got this opportunity, shall we just do it or not? And we did it, and it was hard. It was really a tough decision, and nothing went to plan. We burnt our fingers really bad, and everyone did. The partnership was miserable, and
oh no,
it failed. It was horrible.
Right.
But the lessons that we learned from that, were life changing, and it made us who we are today. It shaped us. So we took, we don't look back at it now. We don't look at the negative side of it. And we learned more from that experience than money could have ever taught you. No university degree could have taught you anything that we learned from that partnership.
Yeah.
It is what it is. No hard feelings. We've moved on, and everyone has their lives. Everyone makes mistakes, and it's water under the bridge now. It's history.
Right, because it's all a part of what's become your journey to this point now.
It shaped us to what we are today, and we had the choice to pack our bags and leave Malaysia and go back to Australia, but we didn't. We stayed true to our beliefs. We came here for a reason, and that was to deliver on a promise, and we did.
And it makes sense that initial move was one of the biggest risks that you took. But while we understand that business risk was a big one, but I'm sure on a personal level as well, because the business wasn't the only thing that moved.
Oh, of course.
You moved.
Yeah, I moved, and the
What was
family
it like
moved.
personally? Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was exciting at the
Yeah.
time, but we're relatively introvert as a family, so we keep to ourselves. We're not socialites by any means. We were just hardworking, a very hardworking conservative family. Coming to Malaysia was an eye opener because you're now in the limelight and people recognize you, people notice you, they want to know your story, they want to ask you questions.
They want to bring you on podcasts.
They want to put you on podcasts just like this. And we've done plenty of it. Social media is a big thing even in those days. The social scene. And it was a culture shock at first.
Yeah.
And then the family came and the family grew, and I got 2 kids, and they're both car enthusiasts. They love what we do, but they're not here in Malaysia with me. They're back in Australia, and since 2014 I've been on my own here, and I wouldn't change it because it's just the way it is. I love what I do, and it frees me up to do my own thing, and I love what I'm doing. I'm still enjoying every moment of every day.
Right.
I don't treat this as a job. It's I'm living a dream.
Yeah.
It is a job. It is definitely I'm
more than
working
that.
for it.
Yeah.
It's more than that. And the most important thing to be in a situation that I'm in right now is to love what you're doing. And if you can't love it, money alone can't make cars like these. Money alone cannot operate a business like this. You've got to love what you do. It's ups and downs. You get good days and bad days.
And it's the love that gets you through it. It's the passion and love that you have.
And it's the team. Without every single person that's in my company,
Right.
I owe everything to the team that I've got, and it's that team that keep me here today.
Right.
And we've been offered some of the biggest, best countries in the world that founded the automotive industry have asked us to relocate to their countries. But we're not interested. We're here because we want to be.
Yeah.
And we're here because we want the people keep us here, and we're here because this is where we want to be, making what we're doing and do what we're doing.
It's like you're a part of you're Malaysian. That's what you are. The company is Malaysian. Yeah.
I'm a proud PR, and I'm the one that puts the flag on every car I make.
Yeah.
So nobody can ever say that I'm not doing my part for Malaysia.
Yeah.
We've sold cars to 40 countries around the world. We've got the richest people on the planet that own them. And we're very, very proud of our achievements, and that's really what makes us tick, and we're loving every moment of it.
Yeah, you're not just running a company, you're kind of like growing a family.
Every
and
car,
that's what
every car is very, very special to the company. Every car is very special. It should be very special to Malaysia. I think when I'm gone, these cars are going to be worth a lot more money than they are today.
Nice.
So we're building history.
Yeah.
Really we are.
And now we're so happy that you're here to share that history with us as well. Now moving on to the rapid fire questions now.
Oh, okay.
Which is where we ask you the question and you just give whatever comes to mind.
Okay.
Short and sweet.
Okay.
Ready for this?
Try.
Okay, Gerry, here we go.
Okay.
What's your all-time favorite Bufori model?
Oh, that's a very difficult question.
Yeah.
It's like asking someone who's their favorite child.
Yeah, but there always is one.
There is always one, is there? The Geneva is definitely my favorite.
All right.
Yeah.
Dream canvas color for a bespoke interior?
Definitely burgundy and beautiful walnut woodwork.
Nice. Oh, that was an easy one.
Yeah.
That was a quick one. Okay. First car that ignited your passion?
That's a tough one. I love the Auburns. I love the Stutz. I love the Packard. It's very difficult to say one.
Right.
If I had to say one, it'd probably be the Auburn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Family huddle or solo creative sprint when it comes to work? I think it's family huddle because you kind of...
I'd start with the family huddle and finish with a sprint.
Okay, so it's both. But it starts with the huddle first.
It does, yeah.
To get everyone aligned.
Yeah.
All right. What's been the toughest component to perfect?
I think I've touched on that earlier. And with all respect to the people I employ, and I know people are not a component, but people do make up a very big part of what we make.
Right.
These are cars that are made with heart and soul. Without people, there are no machines that can make a Bufori. So people is the hardest element or hardest component for us to manage and to produce and to manage.
And that's why the Academy is something that
the Academy is very, very important to us. Yeah.
What's one word that would sum up Bufori's design ethos?
Okay, it's... One word is timeless,
right?
But timeless elegance is probably the right word to use.
Yeah. Right, timeless. And finally, what ambition keeps you up at night dreaming of Bufori's future? What's that?
You know, we've made a lot of cars in this world and put a lot of cars out into the world. But if there's an opportunity for us to have a Bufori parked in the most prestigious museums in the world, parked up alongside the most collectible Rolls Royces or the most desirable Bentleys or Bugattis and things like that, that would make me very, very proud.
Right. That doesn't seem like it's too far off, actually.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's probably already happening and I just don't know about it.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if it has, but,
Yeah.
you know, I'd like to see more of that sort of thing.
That's exciting too. And timeless.
And timeless.
And final question, which we ask all of our guests actually, right? If you had the opportunity to make one change as Prime Minister of Malaysia for a day.
Okay.
For a day.
Right.
What would it be and why? Your Prime Minister for a day.
Gosh. I'd really focus on implementing a craftsmanship academy, an academy to teach people craftsmanship. Don't just do things for the sake of doing them. Do them because you want to.
Right.
Education is really, really paramount.
Right.
When you talk about making things by hand, when you depend on people, you need to teach them fundamentals. And I think that's what I would do if I had a chance today. And the world doesn't need more disposable products. It needs more creators who care deeply about what they build.
Right.
And that, I think, to us is what we would like to see. If I was Prime Minister, yeah, definitely that's what I would like to do.
Things that are well made and last.
From people who care.
Right.
You know,
and are proud of what they do.
Very proud of what they do.
Right.
You know, my brother used to always say to me, it doesn't matter what you do in life, as long as you do it with your body, heart and soul. Right. You know, and you'll be good at it.
Right.
I'd love to see more of that in Malaysia. I don't see a lot of it.
Right. We see it in you, though. We see it in you.
Yeah, because I mean, and I lead by example. Do as I do, not do as I say. But I don't see a lot of that in Malaysian people, unfortunately, or in Asia, actually, to be honest with you. I'd love to see more of it.
Yeah.
I see it in Bufori. Every person in Bufori feels like me. But I'd like to see that from newcomers and people that we interview every day.
And the future will show us what happens next.
That's right.
And thank you so much.
The future is in everyone else's hands. It's a pleasure.
Literally, actually, like especially when it comes to crafts and artisanal things, it literally is in their hands.
Exactly.
It has been a great pleasure speaking with you today and hearing your thoughts.
Pleasure's mine, Terry. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
And this has been Gerry Khouri with us today, who of course is the founder of Bufori. And we'll see you in the next episode of Life Confessions here on Shock.